Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on Heat Illness Prevention Network. We are going to be getting started in just a moment. You should be hearing audio at this time. The webinar does include a question and answer session, and we did have some slides cycling through on a loop that provided information on how to ask a question. We will, when we get to the Q&A portion again, we will go ahead and address that portion one more time for your review. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Christine Baker, the Department of Industrial Relations Director.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Although May has brought us much cooler temperatures across the state, we still all must prepare for heat waves that may occur during this summer. It's been nearly a month since the amendments to the Heat Illness Prevention Regulation went into effect, and we want to make sure employers know what's required of them and employees know what their rights are. We realize that these modifications do require adjustment on the part of some employers. That is why we are putting on additional emphasis and additional resources to outreach and education this year. My staff at DIR, the Chief of Cal OSHA, and the Cal OSHA team have updated the information on our website and provided educational materials in English and Spanish so that information on the changes that went into effect May 1st, are clear, and to give detail on what is required from employers so that you can comply with regulation. I have also increased resources dedicated to heat illness prevention seminars and trainings, and want to remind you that Cal OSHA consultation services are also available to provide on-site consultations on heat illness prevention, as well as other safety information to employers free of charge. As we enter the heat season, we will continue to offer training and education to employers and employer groups, as well as to workers, worker advocates, and labor groups, so that everyone understands what needs to be done to prevent occupational heat illness. Now, I would like to introduce Cal OSHA Chief Julianne Sum, who will discuss the Cal OSHA team efforts on heat illness prevention this year. Julianne?
Thank you, Christine. As Director Baker mentioned, we are providing these heat illness prevention webinars on a monthly basis to stay in touch with all of you in an exchange of information, questions, and to cover all of the possible issues that you would like to see addressed. We continue, as Christine mentioned, to do outreach through seminars and other types of events, and our consultation services are always available for phone consultation and in-person consultations. So, in fact, my staff here are right in the meeting available to present in this hour on those items. In addition, on the enforcement side, we continue to have periodic training sessions for our staff, the ones who are most focused on heat illness prevention compliance efforts. And we have bi-weekly calls with our regional heat coordinators to review all the work that's being done, because we want to ensure the work is high quality and consistent and can send the proper message to help employers abate as well as to deter violations of the heat illness prevention regulation. So thank you very much, and I turn it back to Erica.
Okay, thank you very much, and we are now going to turn the call over to Mr. Krisha, who will be providing us information on a guided tour.
Thank you, Erica. Welcome, everyone. Before we go to the main DIR heat page, I wanted to highlight the fact that the resources that we're talking about this afternoon are available in English and in Spanish. Okay. So an easy way to get to the main DIR heat page is off the main DIR webpage, which is at dir.ca.gov. Click on the heat icon in the upper right of the page. Okay, this is the main heat webpage. We're going to review it briefly on today's webinar, but I hope that you set aside some time to fully explore all the resources that are available here. The first item I'd like to look at is heat illness prevention training. As we scroll down the page, this page is constantly updated, and you'll see on the page that today's webinar is listed. And we want to highlight that not all available trainings are posted here. Please also check local resources for additional trainings that may be being held across the state. Okay. So I'd like to take a look at the education, training, resources, and publications section. Okay. And the other element here that I think is very critical is the 2015 Training Materials PowerPoint or PDF. We have it available in both versions. This is available to you as a resource. You can download this PowerPoint and use it to supplement your specific employer training program for your employees. I'd like to go back. And I'd like to take a look now at the 2015 heat guidance document. The heat guidance document, I think, is a really unique document, and it's new for the revisions this year. We're looking at the title page there, but I wanted to look at this page and the format of this page. There are three columns. The existing language is actually the language of the prior standard. The amended language is the language of the standard that's now currently in effect. And there are guidance elements in the far right-hand column. So you can see here, this is the page that talks about shade. There are other pages that talk about all the specifics of the amended standard. We don't have time to go through all of them. This is a very useful document to assist you in understanding the standard and to assist you in developing your own heat illness prevention program. So if we could go back, all right. Now I'd like to take a look and highlight the 2015 heat question and answer document. And so you can see this document as well. This document has had many revisions in it. Please, again, take the time to read through this document. I think it'll answer many of the questions that you have. But again, as the Chief has said, we're happy to answer those questions through your participation in this webinar and in future webinars. So if we could go back, I'd like to scroll down a little bit and highlight the fact that the consultation e-tool on heat has been updated. And so you can see that here as well. And if we can go back, I'd like to take a look at the model program, employer sample procedures. And this document has been updated to reflect the standards. We get a lot of requests for this document. It's readily available here on the website, and it's also available in Spanish. And the way you would access that would be to go back to the main heat webpage and scroll up to the top. Up in the top, you can see the little tab right there that we're highlighting that in Espanol. And so here you can scroll down, and many of the documents that we've talked about today are also available in Spanish, including the model program. Okay, so if we could go back. Okay, I wanted to do the English page. Thank you. And if we could scroll down to for under workers. One of our, I think, most popular and well-accepted document is the Pocket Guide. And we wanted to highlight that the Pocket Guide is downloadable. You can see it's in English and Spanish here. And you can also order printed copies from our DIR email for heat at dir.ca.gov, and we'll give that address again at the end of this presentation. So I wanted to go to the 99 Calora page. I just wanted to highlight that we've updated any of the materials we have. We still have a few materials that we need to update, and the supervisor's checklist is currently being updated and will be available next week. But there's a wealth of information here, a wealth of training resources that are available to you. These materials are available in English and Spanish. I'd like to go to the Employer tab. Thank you. And I wanted to go to the Worker Fact Sheet. And again, I'm skipping over a lot of the materials that are on the page. Just wanted to highlight and give you a feel for the type of information you can access off these pages.
And then, Bill, this is also Erica Monterosa. I did want to mention we got a question from one of the people that registered for today's webinar asking about some of the materials. The supervisor's daily checklist is one that is slated for update, and that should be updated within the next week to 2 weeks.
So you can scroll down and see, this is the fact sheet, has the graphics. I think it's a great training tool for employers. It gives ready access to employees so that they can kind of understand what the effects of heat are. If we can go back. And I wanted to look at the posters. And again, it's a pretty good graphic, and we get a lot of requests for this. You can also download this off the website. It's a very useful document, and just wanted to show it to you. And I like to go back and scroll down to additional links off the main HEAT web page, and take a look at what I use on a daily basis, and that's the second link down below, the National Weather Service for California information. And this web page provides you with a lot of information about California weather, and we use it to monitor for watches, warnings, and special weather statements, for high heat events, for other serious weather conditions that may affect your employees out in the field. It's also, I think, very useful to evaluate past high temperatures for the work site that you have, because as you should all be aware, when we look at high heat provisions of the revised standard, you want to take an average of the high temperatures for the past 5 days. And if the temperature for the day that you're going to be working is 10 degrees above that, that's considered a high heat situation. And you have to take special precautions. So that's a quick tour of the information that we have available. It's not all inclusive. I just kind of wanted to give you a taste of what's out there. Thank you very much for that. And Erica, back to you.
Thank you very much. And this is Erica Monterosa with the Department of Industrial Relations Communications Office. This does bring us to our question and answer portion of our meeting today. And we do have several people that are logged on with us, and thank you very much for joining us. And many of you did send questions, but if you would like to pose a question in today's webinar, there is definitely a way to do that. I'm going to review that very quickly, and then while we're getting questions, we'll address that. Our panelists today include, in addition to Director Baker and Chief Sum, Bill Crescia, who just was just speaking with us, Amy Martin, Cal OSHA Chief Counsel, and Vicki Hiza, Cal OSHA Consultation Services Program Manager. In order to ask a question, you'll see at the top of your screen several different options, and there's one that is marked Q&A. So if you select that tab at the top of the screen, then it will open up a little window, and you can actually type where it says Q&A, type a question in for us to address. And, pardon me. So while you're doing that, we did get several questions from registrants, and so we are going to address some of the questions that we received. The first one, I'm going to direct this to you, Amy Martin, addresses whether temperature, and it says temperature isn't the only component of heat stress, humidity is also important. Can you provide guidance or advice on humidity?
I think if you look at our Q&A, there is a portion that discusses that, and how you can consider humidity. But I did want to be clear in answering this question that although humidity is definitely important, and in best practices, one would want to consider that when making decisions about whether to continue working in IE and making those kinds of decisions, but that it is not part of the regulation of 3395. So when our inspectors come out, they will not be looking at humidity. They will be looking at straight temperatures.
Right. This is Bill Creasy. Dry bulb temperatures.
Dry bulb temperatures, and making decisions about whether or not shade, for example, is required to be provided based only on the temperature.
Thank you very much. There's another question in regards to the new acclimatization language. It requires that employees be closely observed during a heat wave, and new employees for the first 14 days. Are you supposed to record or document these observations in any way? And if you could provide guidance or advice on records and documentation of close observation?
I'll take that one. This is Amy again. Yeah, you should record that. Not so much because it's directly required by the standard, but because if there is an inspection and if people are wanting to verify whether or not you've complied, it's always good to have some sort of notation in the supervisor's notes or elsewhere that in fact you did follow the regulations requirements.
You know, and we received a number of questions in regards to shade and whether the 100% shade requirement could be met if you only have part of it up or partially up.
Well, the 100% shade requirement comes into being during breaks. So the regulation says that you shall provide shade for 100% of the employees on break. That requirement is absolute. If 25 employees are on break, then you have to have sufficient shade for 25 employees. It will not be compliant to have shade for 5 employees, but have more shade available on the truck that you could put up if somebody asked. It has to actually be erected during the period of the break for all the employees on break.
And this is Bill, that would include meal periods for those who remain on site.
Absolutely.
There was another question in terms of cool down. Now, this said cool down recovery periods, but Amy, could you address the difference between a preventative rest break to cool down and also other periods that are required?
Yeah, I think the preventative cool down or the cool down recovery period was whether or not at what point they become mandatory. That's referring to a provision under the high heat portion of the regulation that's applicable to certain industries, and in this particular case, that mandatory break is only applicable to agriculture at 95 degrees. That's an additional 10-minute break that happens after 8 hours. For a more detailed explanation of that, you should look to the guidance document in the Q&A. The difference between that and the other breaks that can occur is I just wanted to make sure people realize that in all outdoor places of employment, at any time an employee can ask for a preventative cool-down break, and that's where the requirements that it be a minimum of 5 minutes, et cetera, come into being. It's not restricted to high heat. There's no particular temperature trigger, nor is it restricted to any particular industry working outside.
Thank you. Bill, we did get a question about what is acceptable if residential contractors want to use home hose bibs as water sources for their employees.
Well, and I think it really depends on whether or not those home hose bibs are approved for potable water use. That's really what we're looking at, because it's critical to make sure that anything you use to transport water from a potable water system, from a municipal water system that's providing potable water, is approved for potable water use. So it depends on the particular site and the type of hose bibs as to whether they're approved for that use or not.
Thank you. We had another question in regards to water. Do appropriately sized individual thermos water coolers with a flip-up drinking device replace a large multi-person water container with individual disposable cups? Bill, can you answer that as well?
Yes, and we believe that that's acceptable, but the provisions of replenishment, making sure the water is suitably pure, and that it's cool, all apply to those containers. So all the requirements that are in the standard would apply even if you put it in a smaller container.
And hi, this is Amy. I would add that if you are using individual containers that you're giving to each employee, it will probably trigger some requirements that they be clean in between use if you're going to take them home at night or you give them to a different employee.
Right, and so you also want to make sure that they're individual use.
Right.
Wonderful. We did have a question on whether the same outdoor heat illness prevention regulations apply to indoor settings.
They don't. 3395 is for outdoor settings, but having said that, I do want to be clear that indoor heat is a significant hazard, and it's a hazard that an employer is required to address under 3203, which is the IIPP section. That means you've got to evaluate the hazard, you're going to have to determine, and then make determinations about what is required to mitigate and address that hazard.
Very good. Very good. We're getting a little bit of background noise. If someone else is on this telephone line, can you please hit mute on your set so that we're not getting that through to the webinar? Okay, and moving forward, Amy, is there a special number to call if you think that rules are being ignored, that the heat illness prevention regulation rules are being ignored in California?
Yeah, well, there's a number of special numbers. If you go to our website, you will see listing the phone numbers of all of our districts. And I'm assuming what this question is asked, can I make a complaint that somebody's not following? We do, there's a lot of background. Somebody should probably mute their phone. But in any event, if you are an employee or just a person who's aware of an employer that is not in compliance, you should go to the Cal OSHA website, find the district that is in your area, and report to that district. There's also, but I don't have it in front of me, is there not also an 800 number?
There is actually an 800 number, and I'm going to actually show you where that information is. Just one moment. And so that telephone number is 877-99-CALOR, and that actually connects with our call center here at the Department of Industrial Relations. And in listening to the messages on that will connect you to, if you have questions about your own work site, we'll connect you to Cal OSHA consultation. And if you have questions about another work site or concerns about safety hazards, it will connect you to the appropriate Cal OSHA district office for enforcement. Thank you for that.
Could we maybe show everyone on the internet or the DOSH homepage, and there's a button to call in a complaint.
Wonderful. I will do that as well. And so if you click at the top of the website where it says Cal OSHA, that takes you to the information, and underneath workers, there's information on how to file a workplace safety complaint, and that gives very detailed information on how to do that as well. Along with, and I'm scrolling slowly because I know it takes a little bit of, go ahead, Julianne.
And then under number 1, which is a little above, if you click on, if it's any of the industries, it's not the special 3 industries. If it's all other industries, you click on that, and then it takes you to a search engine to find the right district office.
Wonderful. So if we were to do that, then you can actually insert your zip code, and or you can look by background noise. And so if you type in Fresno, then that actually shows you how to file a complaint by calling the Fresno district office. We do have another question, Bill. What is the acceptable level of documentation required for a worksite water replenishment plan?
Well, it has to be adequate enough so that employees understand what they need to do, employees include supervisors, what they need to do to obtain adequate potable water for the employees, suitably cool, and ensure that while they're doing that, have adequate water for folks out in the field. So it's really site-specific. It's a lot more than we will have adequate water for people. You need some level of detail. Who's going to get it? When are they going to get it? When are they going to check it? And we look for those types of things as we do inspections.
Thank you. And Amy, when there's an employee working in agriculture in a company truck with air conditioning, does he or she still need to take breaks and participate in training when the temperature is higher than 95 degrees?
Yes, they absolutely do. Even if the work being performed is in the truck and in the air conditioning, breaks are still required.
And there are some additional questions that we're getting on training. Are employers required to train on this topic annually?
Well, the standard is new, so obviously you have to do initial training. The standard also talks about pre-shift meetings, which would be a very brief training in high heat situations for those employees who are covered by high heat.
But I think they're going for the more general training because those are on a limited number of topics. I think the question is asking about the more general training and what the regulation requires, as does other portions of the Title 8, like IHP, is that your employees be trained. And it specifically says that employees must be trained before they work outdoors in heat. So that would mean that if you have new employees, you're going to have to do the training. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do the training every year, but we will tell you that your employees need to understand your program. If you've made changes, if you have new employees, you'll have to train them. It would be advisable for the running basis because during an inspection.
I'm sorry to interrupt for one moment. Is there someone that's speaking on the line right now? This is actually, we hear someone on the phone right now that is listening.
So she's going to be distracted, obviously, because she's doing the webinar.
We hear someone saying she's going to be distracted, obviously. If you could please disconnect from the telephone line. You should be listening to this audio via your computer. And I apologize to everyone for this technical glitch. But we do hear people in the background. If you're listening via the telephone line, you need to mute the telephone line, or you need to disconnect and listen via your computer audio. Thank you very much. Amy, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. I think the upshot of it is that you're not required to do training yearly, but you are required to ensure that everybody is trained, and it's probably a good idea because people need to be refreshed in their training.
Thank you. In terms of is there a limit to the number of worker educational materials that can be ordered through heat@dir.ca.gov, Bill?
Well, we have a limited resource, and so one of the reasons I wanted to highlight today that we have materials available on the web is you can download the materials, we'll have them immediately. But if you would like a small supply of materials, I've seen requests for thousands of copies of things. We're not going to send you thousands of copies of the pocket guide. We just don't have that many, and so we have to limit the resource application.
Thank you. We have a question on guidance. In terms of, Julianne, maybe you can answer this question in terms of compliance officers and training, or Amy, what training that guidance officers, or pardon me, that compliance officers have received.
Sure, this is Amy. We have, in fact, done extensive training within OSHA, both of our compliance officers as well as to our managers. We've had several training seminars on the new regulation, as well as just generally how to enforce the regulation as a whole, and we will continue to do that throughout the summer because we are just as interested in consistent messaging and consistent application and enforcement of our regulations as the community is.
Thank you. We have another question in terms of the best way to provide shade for a worker who is working alone. For example, a truck driver or someone that spends their day on a construction site for periods of up to 2 hours or more. So the question is how to provide shade for that kind of a worker.
I'll take this one. This is Amy. It's actually not that different from any other worker. If a worker is working as a truck driver, then the truck, if it's got air conditioning, may provide the shade. But we have a lot of cases where people are working all day on a tractor or in a non-air conditioned vehicle, and what employers typically do is provide them with a shade structure of some sort.
That's right. I mean, they'll either provide a shade structure on the vehicle itself, or they'll provide shade structures out in the field.
Right.
We have a question in regards to pre-shift briefings. Should they occur every day of the week, or is one pre-shift briefing, I think you may refer to this as tailgate training, is one per week sufficient?
During periods of high heat, you have to do it every day. And it can be very, very short. Amy's got a really good presentation, and I'll try and paraphrase what she says, but you know, it's going to be hot out there. We have plenty of water. The contact person for the site today is Vicki. If you have any issues with water, any issues happen, please contact Vicki immediately. Remember to drink plenty of water while you're out there on the site. We've got shade up at multiple locations available for you. Anybody has any issues, get in touch with Vicki.
That was great, except you left out one thing. Remember, and remember that it also requires in high heat that you have a system of monitoring. And the systems of monitoring probably need to be set up every day. If you have a buddy system, that's during that pre-work meeting is when you're going to say, here's who your buddy is. If you're using a system where a supervisor, you're going to say, you probably don't have to say anything about it. If it's a remote employee, you're going to want to establish with them or reestablish with them that they're going to have regular communication on this interval and that they need to answer, that sort of thing.
Right, and on remote folks working remotely, we want to make sure that we highlight the fact that it's not just calling at the beginning of the shift
right.
and then 8 or 10 hours later at the end of the shift. You need to call throughout the workday, or they need to call in throughout the workday.
And there's really good descriptions and guidance on this in the guidance document that you'll find on the web.
Thank you. Do the same standards apply for indoor settings? Okay, so did we answer that question?
Yeah, I own it because that no, in an indoor setting, if it's truly indoor, then it's going to be under 3203. You need to assess the hazards of heat within the indoor setting and address them as you would any other hazard in the workplace.
Thank you. So, Bill, cleaning of the water jugs was discussed, and there's a question here about Cal OSHA's recommended cleaning procedures. That's something that we do leave to the employer, correct?
Right, and it depends on the type of equipment you have and the materials that you're going to use. You need to address that in your written program. You'd want to have some specifics as to how frequently you want to clean these, what you're cleaning them with. You want to make sure what you're cleaning them with is approved for that particular use, that they're appropriately rinsed before they're put back into service, and I think that's it.
Good. We do have a few more questions. One question is in regards to law enforcement officers who drive an air-conditioned patrol car, and in terms of monitoring of them during times of high heat. Dispatchers and patrol sergeants check on them hourly. Is there anything else that's required? Amy?
That would be pretty good. In fact, that would almost be a model program. If you have remote employees of any type, and if you're checking in on them hourly, and as long as it's understood by the employee that this is going to happen and that they need to respond, and you have some policy and procedure about what you're going to do if they fail to radio back, then you've got a pretty good monitoring system.
Thank you. And it looks like we've got the last question here today. Is there a certain time period that would make work be considered outdoor work? Who wants to address that?
Well, I'll start. I don't think it's a time period. I think it's when, depending upon the temperatures at the site.
I think the question is going to people who are working both indoors and outdoors. I mean, that's how I'm interpreting it.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong, but it sounds like what the person is saying. What if I am, for example, a delivery driver who spends a lot of time or I work in a warehouse where I spend a lot of time in the warehouse, but I have to go out to do periodic work outside. And I can't give you, and Vicki, jump in here, because I know you guys address this in consultation. we don't have a hard and fast rule on the amount of time. We look to see whether it's a significant amount of time. Is that right? Is that outside?
Yes, there's no provision for that whatsoever, and it's up to the employer to make that judgment. If an employee is spending, certainly, several hours at a time outdoors, then the employer needs to really think about whether or not this is going to be applicable to that employee.
And I agree.
Wonderful. One point of clarification in regards to the hourly reporting for people that are working outdoors by themselves. This question is a follow-up from the same person that posed the original question. Did he hear that hourly reporting for remote employees is the correct frequency? Is there a suggested frequency?
It's acceptable. We didn't write there's no specific provision in the regulation that says that thou shalt call at this interval. But what we said in our guidance document is that you want it to be a set interval at expected time so that the employee is not caught off guard, and frequent enough that you would be able to determine whether or not the employee is in distress. And I think we even say in the guidance document that hourly would be acceptable.
Thank you. So we do want to invite those that are attending today's webinar. If you do have questions, now is the time to ask those. We have another question in regards to whether a water jug, a 2-gallon water jug, is it okay to have one of those with a mouthpiece rather than bigger jugs with individual water cups?
I believe we've already, this is Bill, I believe we've already addressed that, and then the issue is that it's okay to have a 2-gallon water jug, but the water has to be suitably cool, the water jug would have to be appropriately maintained, and you have to have replenishment procedures in case somebody needs more than 2 gallons of water.
Great. So at this point, I think those are the total questions that we've had. We do want to thank everyone that's joined us for today's webinar. Julianne, do you have any final thoughts or final words to share with us?
Just to, again, thank everyone for participating and thank my managers here and Erica and Director Baker and Paola from Public Information Office for helping make this call possible and to encourage people to continue to participate and interact with us if you have questions.
Great. And then, we do have a few more questions. We do have a few more minutes, so we definitely want to give you the opportunity to speak with the experts about these questions that you have. So in terms of, actually we got a great question in regards to shade and proximity to bathrooms, and I invite you, Amy Martin, to speak to this now.
Yeah, I always get this question. So here's the answer to this. There is no minimum distance that the shade and whatever kind of seating you have needs to be away from the bathroom. It is literally going to be a case-by-case basis. And it's going to, it's going to depend on a lot of factors. It's going to depend on how clean your bathroom is. It's going to depend on how hot it is, because we know that can greatly affect porta potties. It's going to be determined by a lot of different factors. You should be looking at it, and I mean, it's not rocket science, people. You should be looking at the situation on your work site, and if it is such that a reasonable person would not want to sit in that shade to recover because of the proximity to the bathroom or any other hazards that may be around, then you're going to have to move the shade.
Thank you. One final question, actually two. One is, does the cleaning frequency have to be documented? I assume that he's referring to, or he or she is referring to water jugs.
Well, the cleaning frequency needs to be part of your written heat illness prevention program. I mean, you have to have them cleaned and inspected on a regular basis. And it depends on what's happening. I mean, one of the things that our inspectors do when they're out in the field is they'll look at the jugs to see if there's anything in them. But the division doesn't have a minimum. They don't have to, we don't say whether it's weekly. Some situations it may be every other day.
Well, hold on.
It depends on.
It depends on whether you're using a large water jug that is going to have individual cups. Then it has to be clean, and you'll have to make your own determination on whether it's getting dirty and whether it needs to be cleaned. But if you're using the individual jugs, they're going to have to be cleaned every night or between use by different people.
Correct.
Great. We do have, I'm just taking a look to see if we have any other questions. There is one question here that refers to breaks, and I will direct the person who asked this question to actually pose this question to the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement. They're the correct group, and that's within our department. They're the correct group to address this question. You can, go to our website again, and I'm going to just show folks, if that's okay with everyone, where to get to that. You could go to our website, and at the top of the website where it says Labor Law, you could just click on that at dir.ca.gov, and then it gives information about locations here on the right-hand side. And you can call the office that's closest to you, and you'll see that there's also an alphabetical listing of cities, locations, and communities, so you can ask that question of them. They're the experts that can answer those kinds of labor law questions. And the final, we got a few more questions. We have a question on the distance requirement for water from the worker.
Water needs to be as close as practicable to the work that's actually being performed. What I usually like to tell people about this, it's going to be individual to your website, but it's good to bear in mind the purpose of the regulatory requirement. The reason that water needs to be close is that people need to be able to take frequent sips of water, frequent drinks of water while they are working. If you bear that in mind when you're trying to place the water, then I think you'll probably put it in the right place. In other words, it's not okay anymore to just have water where they're going to take their breaks. You need to have water close to where the work is being done so that they can drink as they work. If it's fields, that might be at the end of the rows. If it's a construction site, it might be water on every floor that you can safely place water where workers are actually performing their work. Whatever you can do to ensure that workers are able to drink while working frequently is what you should be looking to.
I'd like to add in agriculture, I think one of the points of confusion is the field sanitation standard, which originally said that toilet facilities have to be at a quarter-mile or a 5-minute walk, whichever is closer. And so clearly with the advent of the heat illness prevention standard years ago, water can be brought in closer than that quarter-mile or 5-minute walk. So, and again, to repeat what Amy said, it has to be as close as practicable. I've heard people say water is small. It can be close to where the workers are. It can be moved as the workers move. So water needs to be readily accessible.
Wonderful. There are more questions along the same lines in terms of documenting the cleaning or replenishment processes for water, and I think we've already addressed that. If you have additional questions, you can certainly pose those questions in written form to heat@dir.ca.gov. We do have another question in terms of whether we plan on doing this kind of a webinar on other topics. Thank you so much for your positive feedback. And yes, we are definitely open to that. Feel free to send us an email at heat@dir.ca.gov if you have specific topics that you would like for us to host a webinar on that safety and health, occupational safety and health topic. So any final words from anyone? Then at this time, I'm going to thank you very much. Oh, Bill, you have some final thoughts?
One of the things that I do on a daily basis is we monitor the heat in the state of California. And so in past years, I know that we've been very good. We haven't had a heat wave in a little while. But when we do have a heat wave, we have done press releases through your office, Erica. And we'll continue to do that this year.
Yes, we will. Yes.
So there will be press releases out. And again, look at the National Weather Service website. There are other private websites that are really good, but I'm going to plug the National Weather Service website because I can. And it's got a lot of information there. Once you get familiar with it, it's really quick to see if there are any watches, warnings, or special weather statements in regards to heat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you all for joining us for today's webinar.